Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the doors of the Palace of Versailles? Well, it might be more scandalous and, well, dirtier than you ever expected, literally. The whole royal court resided in Versailles, the symbol of wealth and opulence. That would certainly be the case if you were to visit it now, but what about back then? The Palace of Versailles, resplendent and opulent, continues to draw hundreds of visitors. Germans, English, African, French, and Japanese eagerly seek to penetrate the intimacy of the monarchs and are particularly interested in uncovering the sordid aspects of the decor. All arrive with the perception of an odorous Versailles. The courtiers urinating at the stairway corners, a king seated on his toilet, as all others empty their chamber pots from the windows above. Biases? Their methods for cleaning the castles were entirely dissimilar. It is asserted that to maintain cleanliness, one must possess fresh breath, thus, one should emit a pleasant odor from the mouth, but not from the feet. Perfume serves to mitigate this deficiency in cleanliness. What about this negative reputation? Were the rulers as filthy as the foul-smelling castle, it is essential to acknowledge that every period perceives itself as untainted. What is the distinction between fantasy and reality in the context of cleanliness and filth within the castle of the Sun King? A tradition suggests that Louis XIV bathed only once throughout his lengthy life. Is this yet another bias to be surmounted, or is Louis genuinely not accustomed to bathtubs? During the era of Louis XIV, there were no designated toilets or facilities for washing, rather, he may bathe in rivers. Additionally, there existed the option of conducting baths in the bedroom, wherein a copper bathtub was brought in, culminating in the king's bathing, albeit in a pretty extraordinary manner, it should be noted. The monarch had frequented spas in his youth, where the elite male aristocracy convened. We discussed several topics. We specifically discussed women and mistresses. Consequently, Louis XIV bathed multiple times during his life. Cleanliness is really an issue of sensibility. Although the Sun King favored ponds for respite, he did not immerse himself for cleansing. Furthermore, the term cleanliness was not employed during the classical era. Although it may be perceived as a site of filth for us, it can be described as a location of relative malodor, if one may employ such terminology. It is a location that is evidently distant from our familiar sights. It is a place characterized by soil, if you will. They lack such experience. Louis XIV is certain that it is exceptionally clean. However, water is no longer regarded as a determinant of cleanliness, rather, it is viewed in the opposite light. Water is today considered the conduit of all evils, whether tangible or illusory. There is apprehension that the pores of exposed skin, expanded by heat, are more susceptible to miasmas and contribute to the proliferation of epidemics. The profound dread of the epidemic evidently spawned this unreasonable aversion to water. Water is not inherently perilous. Prior to the pandemic, the anxiety induced by the air rendered water hazardous. What is the reason? Hot water is believed to open the pores, and during the Middle Ages, baths, which were quite prevalent, were regarded as relatively concerning venues. Louis XIV initially engaged with bathers at the onset of his reign, but subsequently diminished his interactions with them. He progressively assimilated the understanding that water poses a threat. The fear of the pandemic has frequently been noted as the catalyst for the prevalence of squalor at Versailles. However, we may worry more than the plague that water allows the body's humors to escape, resulting in the depletion of essential energies, mental incapacity, and even miscarriages. If we recommend the bath, it is mostly for therapeutic purposes to eliminate the malady. Louis XIV is then compelled to submerge himself in a bathtub, akin to how bloodlettings and purges contribute to the internal purification of the body. Louis XIV underwent bloodletting procedures every 15 days, for instance. Bleeding is regarded as a detoxifying process within the body. The fear, among others, is that the humors, deemed the most vital substances of the body, may become corrupted or intermixed. What actions are necessary? Expulsion occurs by sweating and purging. You see Molière, we likewise expel through the. Expulsion promotes health, contrary to contemporary illusions, and simultaneously purifies the inside of the body. There is a demand for a vibrant and fresh complexion, achieved through the use of minor remedies, specifically enemas, to ensure optimal bodily humors. Noteworthy instances are found in literature, detailing women who employ servants for this procedure, while some men resort to bribing these servants to administer the enema without the woman's consent. There exists a manifestation of this approach, which appears to correlate with our previous discussion, namely with both a manipulation of aesthetics and an emphasis on cleanliness. However, other from heat waves and disease, is there no bathing? During the reign of Louis XIV, there existed only a single restroom, or more accurately, a bathing chamber. Currently, we preserve in the orangery a memento of this remarkable chamber, an octagonal bathtub sculpted from a singular block of orange marble. The king commissions this vat for the Marquise de Montespan, his favoured mistress, to embellish an apartment of extraordinary opulence. This apartment was conceived rapidly during Louis XIV's expansion of the Palace of Versailles, intended not only for his own gratification but also to impress his paramour. Louis XIV is infatuated with his favourite and consistently seeks to please her. She adores opulence, she is ostentatious, she is arrogant, she possesses a vibrant disposition, the renowned Mortemart spirit, hence nothing is deemed excessive for her. Louis XIV, in designing this residence entirely of porphyry marble, a highly valuable material, aims to impress her. This vat is not just a masterpiece, having been sculpted from a single block, but it also signifies an extravagant cost. It equates to 50 years of an annual wage of a specialized worker or a remarkably exquisite mansion with carriage doors in Paris. However, it is not merely a matter of bathing for personal hygiene. This tub was designed to be spacious, accommodating the king and his favoured for relaxation, comfort, and sensuality, although lacking in cleanliness. Upon her disgrace, Montespan is compelled to vacate the first floor and descend to the lower floor, taking residence in the bath apartment, once the domain of her affection. The descent on the ground floor, naturally, symbolizes the decline in the king's heart. At Versailles, the courtiers, like the monarch, are proficient in the use of bathtubs. And possibly even less, as their apartments are too compact to accommodate one. However, if one does not cleanse in a bath, how can one get cleanliness? The term employed specifically at the court of Louis XIV is dry toilet, signifying a facility that serves the purpose of a toilet without the utilization of water. What is a dry toilet? It is the act of cleansing oneself. It involves wiping with a clearly white cloth, or alternatively, using a cloth saturated in a specific acidic solution. This acidity is believed to eliminate perspiration or filth more efficiently. However, it is truly the case, and I think we must emphasize this to ensure comprehension. What is the sensitivity about the timing of a dry toilet's usage? For Louis XIV, the lavatory was both arid and communal. Mathieu da Vigna, director of the castle's research center, follows the route of the courtiers, who, as each morning, hasten to witness the king's awakening and his grooming. We are in the king's ceremonial bedroom, the very chamber where Louis XIV actually slept, situated in an opulently adorned environment. He sleeps here each night, or rises in public at 8:40 in the morning. At 8:30, one must envision a vigil bed where the chief valet of the district's king slumbered, who then raised the curtains and proclaimed, "Sir, the hour has arrived." During her lifetime, the nurse was the inaugural individual to enter the king's chamber to kiss him, and she passed away in 1688. Thus, we must envision a petite woman who served as Louis XIV's nurse. At the age of 50, Louis XIV receives her initial kiss. She vanishes rapidly, she is not involved in the ascent, and the initial individuals to genuinely enter the king's chamber are those referred to as the faculty members. Specifically, his initial physician, who assessed his pulse, and his surgeon, who examined the king's excrement to ensure all was okay. The faculty members discreetly departed, prompting the judicial process to commence, wherein all courtiers will progressively reappear in accordance with their status. Louis XIV is seated, his shirt is donned, and his first valet presents him with water for hand-washing, referred to as spirit of wine water, essentially 90% alcohol. The valet, holding a silver guilture in his right hand, pours water over the king's hands while balancing a tray in his left hand to catch any excess. A towel is offered for drying, and the king is prepared for shaving. The process involves a basic wash, with his face rinsed using a sponge soaked in spirit of wine water, followed by pure water to complete the cleansing. This scene provides a glimpse into the royal intimacy of the king's morning routine. It encompasses the entire nobility in addition to the king, who utilizes this dry toilet. And Faure Carlier, curator at the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris, unveils this closeness for us. The artist opted to depict a woman at her awakening, specifically engaged in one of her initial daily rituals, namely her toilette, so granting us insight into her intimacy and elucidating the significance of the morning toilette. She is rising from bed, she awoke early. In the 18th century, aristocratic women rose early and donned a negligee, a delicate satin garment. Several of these paintings depict various individuals surrounding the woman at her toilette. Her abbot, who arrives to hear her confession, is followed by the fashion merchant who will present her with the latest adornments. We will also locate her secretary, who may be able to record the initial notes she composes and deliver them to the intended recipient. At court, diminutive books circulate, small enough to be effortlessly concealed in a pocket. Entitled treatises on decorum and civility, they prescribe the standards of etiquette for newcomers. While cleanliness is universally emphasized, in Versailles, it is arguably more about superficial looks than genuine hygiene. The utmost distinction originates from the linen, it must be pristine and white. Indeed, we do not cleanse our bodies, yet we change our garments multiple times daily. There is a triumph of linen, we observe a steady waterfall of linen draping the body, extending down to the legs. You own the barrel that occasionally ascends with lace. The linen is also evident at the sleeves. What is it that can be observed? We often overlook it, however it is essential, it signifies the internal state. The linen that originates from the garment is derived from the interior, creating a crucial interplay between the internal and external aspects. The impetus for changing linen is the perception that sweat is less hazardous than water. The replacement of the shirt eliminates the grime we believe exists. Cleanliness pertains to an evident aspect of appearance, although it also encompasses touch and emotion. Thus, linen serves a dual purpose, it embodies both tactile experience and visual representation. It is evident that cleanliness is both demonstrated and concurrently observed. The sensation is experienced to the extent that the alteration is associated with sensitivity. One of the earliest to articulate this eloquently is Montaigne, who states, "I cannot endure my sweat," referring to the necessity of changing his linen, among countless other examples. I recall the Princess Palatine, who arrives from Mali, proceeds to another castle, and remarks, "I traverse terrain inundated with dust, I am utterly fatigued, I am covered in dust." What are the responsibilities of the Princess Palatine? She does not indicate that she intends to wash, rather, she states that she is drying herself and changing her shirt, which does not inherently imply that I must wash. The fashion accessory, the instrument for hygiene, linen embodies all that an aristocracy clad in white perceives as more pristine than the hemp worn by a peasant. The struggle for white is quantified by the quantity of shirts in your wardrobe. Envision the king's clothing meticulously arranged in chests within the bedroom, preserved like to valuable jewels. Linen signifies a luxury commodity, or indeed luxury products of the day. It was exceedingly costly. The king's wardrobe was located on the ground floor, while his primary living quarters were situated on the first floor. The chests in the bedroom serve as emergency storage, hence, there is no need to rush to the closet on the ground floor, as a shirt for the king is readily available for fast change. These items are prohibitively expensive due to their composition of cotton, linen, and luxurious materials, often exceeding the cost of furniture or paintings that were deemed valueless at the time. An artwork by an artist for which we would currently pay several tens or perhaps hundreds of thousands of euros at that time, it was expected to be £20, with shirts, tablecloths, and household linens costing significantly more. In the wardrobes of courtiers, shirts are enumerated by the dozen and are deemed so valuable by their owners that they are listed in posthumous inventories. Denis Brunat, curator at the Museum of Decorative Arts in Paris, welcomes us to the reserves where rare and unique artifacts are stored. Court dresses are not laundered, they are meticulously massaged and brushed with utmost reverence. Shirts, conversely, are handled by laundresses and washerwomen and are laundered with all types of linen. The shirt is vital as it has served as the sole undergarment for both men and women for millennia, persisting until the mid-19th century. It is essential to note that when you don your shirt, it is a man's shirt. The man is entirely unclothed beneath, in other words, he possesses nothing at all. The shirt will serve as undergarments for both the upper and lower body. The shirt is tightly fitted to the body, it is nearly inseparable. The phrase originates from the notion that a shirt functions as a second skin. To resemble the fit of a shirt that closely conforms to the body, it even embraced the buttocks. It was, I would assert, a conjunction of the body and the clothing, two inseparable components. It is a pair of panties with an atypical appearance that was relatively prevalent during that period. It is referred to as a pair of bridge panties. Specifically, the bridge is the section at the front that fastens with a button at this level. Featuring many types of buttons, this piece detaches when unfastened. We lower the bridge and unfasten it at this level, allowing us to proceed with any desired actions. We donned it due to its exquisite and lustrous fabric. We should also envision wearing these garments during candlelit evenings. Maintaining cleanliness in the castle, consequently, pertains to attending to the visible areas of the body. The private regions were not generally the focus of attention, particularly during the Grand Siècle. How can one conceal the unpleasant odor that arises from these bodies in this fortress where we vie for sophistication? Treatises on politeness instruct courtiers on the proper technique for nose blowing and provide remedies to combat halitosis and foot odor. Body scents cannot be entirely masked, yet apothecaries are tasked with creating scented sachets for garments, linens, and wigs. Compact aromatic sachets are positioned beneath the armpits or on the hips, inserted into the creases of garments or the lapels of doublets. Perfume subsequently ascends to the status of the supreme artifice. Perfume is utilized to conceal unpleasant odors. Perfume serves specifically to offset this deficiency in hygiene, resulting in potent and intense fragrances characteristic of the Grand Century. Specifically, animal scents, namely civet, musk, and amber, which are the three most utilized at now. In his youth, Louis XIV evidently misused these scents. They were indeed the intoxicating, opulent fragrances of the illustrious century, and ultimately he will no longer endure them. Upon entering a room, he opens all the windows. While going in his carriage, he lowers all the windows due to his inability to tolerate the odors, particularly those of the women accompanying him. Louis XIV, who favored the pleasant fragrance of orange blossoms, commissioned an old palace to safeguard his cherished orange trees, imported from China, from winter frosts. In addition to its scent, orange blossom is reputed to possess other qualities, including aphrodisiac properties. Throughout the hall of mirrors and the rooms, valets disperse a subtle smell within the castle. Alone, Madame de Montespan appears indifferent to the preferences of her royal lover and persists in unnecessarily applying perfume. Madame de Montespan had a great fondness for these perfumes and creams. She would apply an abundance of overpowering scents while lying naked on her bed. It is also accurate that Louis XIV, who first favored them, gradually ceased to support them towards the latter of Madame de Montespan's tenure, as their influence became pronounced, particularly associating them with the migraines he had endured for many years. He publicly inquired of Madame de Montespan, subjecting her to a moral affront before everyone present. As she entered the Queen's vehicle, the monarch remarked that she was excessively perfumed. In the late 1670s and early 1680s, Madame de Montespan was suspected of concocting philters to ensure his continued affection or of attempting to murder his current mistress, Mademoiselle de Fontanges. It is a narrative that unsettles the entire court, as numerous witches, referred to as fortune tellers, who conducted black masses with minors, were exposed. We might surmise that the notion of the potent fragrances she adorned herself with grew questionable in the perception of Louis XIV. Intoxicating, deceptive, alluring, yet also antiseptic fragrances. During periods of plague or epidemic, scent serves as a purifying agent. Your job during the pandemic, assigned to perfumers, is nonetheless intriguing. Cities afflicted by the epidemic will employ perfumers, often compensating them well by positioning them near entrances and heavily trafficked tunnels. Individuals who walk by at that moment are entrusted to the perfumer, who will modify the products in some manner, resulting in their full obsolescence. There exists a second, entirely overlooked practice, the installation of fragrant cassolettes in hospitals, which would not only dispel foul air but also generate pure air, so enhancing the daily experience of patients. It is entirely overlooked today. These two behaviors enhance our comprehension of how, in the 17th century, the use of perfume was associated with the sensation of eliminating filth. Perfume serves as a means of manifesting one's identity, as it conveys to others the essence of one's existence, fundamentally embodying purity. Perfume serves as an indicator of social standing, leading to classifications such as a royal fragrance, a bourgeois scent, and a perfume for the impoverished. At the chateau, fragrance is evidently an element of opulence, integral to his lavish soirees. Louis XIV adorns his fountains with essences of orange blossom and jasmine. However, it is during the reign of Louis XV that the court of Versailles earns the designation of the scented court, as one must alter their fragrance daily to remain fashionable. The renowned fragrance with a multitude of blossoms will be crafted for Marie Antoinette, an aromatic masterpiece consisting of flowers from every season. Another illusion of cleanliness is cosmetics. To apply makeup is to deceive, to manipulate the appearance, to conceal blemished faces. We then apply cosmetics, we deceive our emotions. The courtier must regulate all aspects, including his innate expressions and feelings. In this illustrious era, a new hierarchy of the senses emerges, with sight dominating all. Excessive reliance on scent, touch, and hearing renders appearances paramount. What we perceive supersedes the truth, with cosmetics and makeup evidently contributing to this art of dissimulation. We possess these nearly caricatured visages, white and red. This makeup possesses a subtly dramatic quality, enhancing all expressions, reflective of the 17th century, a period renowned for its theatricality and exploration of expression. We simultaneously ridicule this nobility through makeup, reinforcing an image of duality, deceit, and concealment. Furthermore, the phrase "without makeup" is currently synonymous with authenticity. This demand for whiteness oppresses the complexion. Regarding linen, the surface must appear flawless. White thereafter conjures an ideal of purity, an unblemished humanity, reminiscent of the state prior to the fall. A clean face signifies a spirit unblemished and devoid of any scars. White undoubtedly represents an idle elite, an aristocrat shielded from adverse conditions, in contrast to the sun-kissed visages of the populace. This pursuit of whiteness results in several consequences, including the most detrimental. The predominant bleaching agent utilized during that period was the renowned white lead. This cosmetic has been known since antiquity. Both the Romans and Greeks utilized cosmetics containing white lead. It inflicts significant harm to the skin. It is highly astringent, causing significant skin irritation. It is also desiccative, leading to excessive dryness. Prolonged application can accelerate premature aging and the appearance of expression lines. This observation pertains to the temporal context, whereby white lead is identified as lead carbonate. Being a metallic powder, it poses a far greater risk, particularly to ocular health, potentially resulting in severe eye illnesses. Applying white lead to the neck can result in disorders that impact the chest or lungs. Due to the irreversible alteration of skin caused by white lead, alternative strategies are employed. The flies, which are intended to complete the makeup, also attempt to conceal the damage caused by this lethal substance. Consequently, we can observe more than 18 flies simultaneously on the faces, as numerous as concealed fissures. Prior to being an artifice, the fly mostly represents a chivalrous rule, and for women, the lifestyle might be arduous. 3 hours are required for dressing and applying makeup in the morning, followed by an additional change of linen after lunch. Theatre, dining, an evening of romance, a pursuit of brilliance and opulence that occasionally succumbs to excess. To maintain cleanliness and order, the woman ensures her dressing table is equipped with essential goods for her beauty regimen: an ointment box, a fly box, pomades, and perfumes. She holds minor essentials in the folds of her clothing, each more delicate and exquisite than the last one. And Foray Carlier has extracted pieces utilized at court from the collections of the Museum of Decorative Arts for us. The restroom was not solely completed in the morning. Throughout the day, individuals might be summoned to enhance their appearance, necessitating the use of compact grooming kits. This is a refined example presented as a tiny box containing all the essentials for enhancing one's radiance. This set includes 2 little bottles, likely one for perfumed water and the other for salts. Salts are crucial as they are used to restore one's senses when feeling unwell, often by inhaling them directly from a container. Women were prone to fainting due to the constrictive nature of their corsets. You possess several diminutive tools, such as miniature pliers designed, maybe, for the removal of an unattractive hair. These things completely align with the gifts a lover may present to his beloved, and they typically feature inscriptions. This pertains to the tiny bottle kit. Nothing is too good for those we cherish. Here is another little maxim: pledge of my affection. Among these diminutive items we carry, there exists a more whimsical object, such as this small porcelain leg featuring a real fly positioned at the knee. This leg can be opened, allowing us to conceal either a small love note or perhaps some powder within. In the realm of fragrant liquids, a diminutive animated bottle. This is a beautiful porcelain flower arrangement that features an upper opening for adding perfumed water droplets. A different color signifies the apex of this delusion. It is red. It is intended to improve the luminosity of the complexion and obscure the signs of aging. Lady Montagu, an English author, described Versailles as a congregation of freshly shorn sheep. Envision cheekbones resembling flames, a face adorned with blue-tinged veins, and hair akin to white wool. This white dictatorship is ubiquitous. No hair would be embellished without being powdered. Moreover, the powder serves as both an aesthetic standard and a means of degreasing the hair. We do not cleanse the hair, rather, we apply powder to it. It resembles dry shampoo, which was not intended to be advantageous for the hair. If one walks through the painting galleries of medieval masters, one feature strikes the viewer: looking at human portraits, nobody smiles. Unless depicting a simpleton or the village idiot, every portrait shows a somber individual with pursed lips, without showing teeth. Victorians thought of smiling as obscene, inappropriate. 1. Nor did they have nice teeth to show for. The oral hygiene habits of yesteryears were so deplorable that foul-looking and smelling decaying teeth were the norm. When Elizabeth I, Queen of England, developed a sweet tooth for sugar, a newly imported luxury from South America, her teeth could not be saved. Her blackened and broken down front teeth were a source of shame for her, to the point of banning any portrait to show her smile. She, apparently, even covered the mirrors in her palace to avoid facing reality. Some of her courtiers, out of loyalty, painted their own teeth black, much like ohaguro, the Japanese custom of dyeing one's teeth black, fashionable until the end of the Meiji period. Up until medieval times, oral hygiene was neither systematically practiced, clearly understood, encouraged, nor a subject to write about. Since toothbrushes and toothpaste did not exist during this time, bad breath was very common. People would rub their teeth and gums with cloths covered in herb mixtures to eliminate the oral odor. Other remedies consisted of rinsing the mouth with ice water, chewing celery or cider peel, or using bay leaves and musk as an antiseptic. After a lifetime of dental problems, Louis XIV was toothless by the time he passed in 1715. His dental woes weren't unique. Decadent treats made with refined sugar, which began to be widely available in France in the 17th century as a result of colonialism and slavery, rotted teeth, and French aristocrats gobbled them up. Despite, or because of, the prevalence of rotten teeth, having a good mouth was important to many courtiers at Versailles and their beauty ideals. As described in the 17th century text The School of Venus, a beautiful woman should have even and very white teeth. Courtiers used various powders and mouthwashes to give the appearance of healthy teeth. By the middle of the 18th century, oral hygiene had become a mark of elegance, thanks in part to improvements in dentistry. When clothes became extremely dirty or infested with fleas, moths, or bedbugs, that is when people would put on a new outfit. Linen fabric was a popular textile of the time and helped to absorb sebum and sweat. When people changed their clothes, they believed they no longer needed a shower and would only clean uncovered areas, such as the face and arms. Answering nature's call wasn't always a private experience at Versailles. Louis XIV often took visitors while on the commode, as did other members of his court. Nonetheless, all inhabitants would have had chamber pots or commodes in their private rooms. The higher ranking you were at court, the more likely you would have been to have a small closet in your chambers in which to do your business. The first flush toilet didn't arrive at Versailles until Louis XV, the Sun King's successor, installed one for his personal use in 1738. Due to limited plumbing, chamber pots were unceremoniously dumped out windows. Passers-by would have to move with caution. Even Marie Antoinette was said to have been hit by flying waste. If the pots weren't dumped out the window, they would have to be transported to one of the nearby cesspools that collected waste. Given the lack of adequate plumbing and the density of people at the palace, many courtiers answered nature's call whenever and wherever it was most convenient. Seeing someone in the act of relieving him or herself wasn't an uncommon sight. The Princess de Harcourt, for one, didn't think twice about urinating in public. In 1702, German-born Princess Elizabeth Charlotte recoiled at the behavior she saw at the French court. The gardens of Versailles are some of the largest in the world and include 372 statues, 55 water features, 600 fountains, and over 20 miles of canals. Each year, 210,000 flowers and 200,000 trees are planted there for visitors to roam through and admire. Apparently, the smell of the gardens was very strong in the 17th century, and it overpowered guests at the palace. Madame de Maintenon wrote in a letter dated August 8, 1689, "The tube roses drive us away from Trianon every evening." The excess of fragrance causes men and women to feel ill. Despite its reputation for magnificence, life at Versailles, for both royals and servants, was no cleaner than the slum-like conditions in many European cities at the time. Women pulled up their skirts up to pee where they stood, while some men urinated off the balustrade in the middle of the royal chapel. According to historian Tony Sporforth, author of Versailles, a biography of a palace, Marie Antoinette was once hit by human waste being thrown out the window as she walked through an interior courtyard. The heavily trafficked latrines often leaked into the bedrooms below them, while blockages and corrosion in the palace's iron and lead pipes were known to occasionally poison everything in Marie Antoinette's kitchen. Not even the rooms of the royal children were safe, writes Sporforth. An occasional court exodus could have reduced the wear and tear on Versailles, perhaps leading to fewer unpleasant structural failures. This unsanitary way of living no doubt led to countless deaths throughout royal European households. It was not until the 19th century that standards of cleanliness and technological developments improved life for many people, including members of royal courts. Today, many European royals still move from residence to residence, but for pleasure, not to try and outrun squalor. The ceremonial public meal, known as the royal table, follow every step of the day of Louis XIV, was a daily avowal of the king's power which dated from the Middle Ages. According to the etiquette of the court of Versailles, the king invited the queen, his children and grandchildren to dine here. During private meals, however, he dined alone. Louis XIV respected this ritual every day, unlike his successors Louis XV and Louis XVI. By the end of the Ancien Regime, the royal table was used only on special occasions and Sundays. Dinner at the royal table was held at 10 p.m. in the Queen's or the King's antechamber, according to the period. The table was laid and the King's chair put in place. Folding stools were placed at the end of the table for the dinner guests. A small number of high-ranking ladies sat in the front row of the audience. Behind them stood the other courtiers and those passing by. Other than these daily feasts, Louis XIV ate his meals in private in Trianon or Marly, a royal estate situated 7 kilometers northwest of Versailles. The palace no longer exists. Meals in more limited company only really developed under Louis XV, who disliked such formal ceremonies. After hunting trips, the king often invited friends to stay for dinner, which he gave in his private apartment or his cabinets. The majority of his guests were ladies and included his mistresses. These festivities saw the birth of French gastronomy, as the king was extremely fond of good food. Louis XV even made his own hot chocolate. To restore a sense of luxury to life in the court, Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette later introduced society meals to which 40 or so worthy guests were invited according to their station or merit. These dinners were held in the dining room in the new rooms in the private apartment, where the finest porcelain tableware from Sèvres was used in alternation with silver tableware. The sheer amount of people, along with the squalid filth in which they lived, led to the spread of syphilis, a disease that riddled the nobility at Versailles and plagued the court up until the French Revolution. Smallpox was another terror, and 2 epidemics swept through Paris in 1719 and 1723. There was no cure, and if you did survive, it would leave pockmarks on your face, or if you were really unlucky, turn you blind. It infiltrated the Palace of Versailles as well and famously killed Louis XV. But it wasn't just disease affecting the body that plagued Versailles. The lack of hygiene practices meant that many French aristocrats would be infested with lice. Compound this with the fact that you could lose hair as a side effect of syphilis, and it's no wonder why many opted to wear wigs. We like to imagine that the powdered wigs were for fashion, but they were merely designed to hide the fact that many men and women simply shaved their heads. The irony was that the same practice was employed by ancient Egyptians over 2,000 years ago. The lice would still infest the wigs, but it was much easier to clean them than your own natural hair, as you could immerse the wig in boiling water, which would kill any nits or eggs. Still, this was an accepted way of life, and no one was safe from disease because no one practiced proper hygiene, not even the rich and wealthy, who appeared to be more susceptible than even the masses. The situation at Versailles, however, was grimmer. There could be 10,000 people on a given day, and all the waste that accumulated had to go somewhere, right? According to historian Tony Sporforth, a lot of this was simply thrown outside. Marie Antoinette was once hit by human waste as she walked through the inner courtyard, prompting her courtiers to rush back and get a new pair of clothes. And if that wasn't bad enough, pipes carrying waste would sometimes leak into bedrooms, and blockages would cause a build-up of toxic fumes leading to even more sickness. Even the gardens weren't safe from the filth. The passages, the courtyards, the wings, and the corridors were full of urine and fecal matter. The park, the gardens, and the chateau made one wretch with their bad smell. One of the reasons for this was that Versailles was built on former marshland, and some areas still retained a foul odor. When summer came, this was even worse, as the smell would mingle with the sweat, feces, and grime, creating a truly pungent mix. No matter where you were, inside the palace or outside in the courtyards, the stench was everywhere. The squalor of Versailles wasn't unique to France, and many palaces throughout Europe were just as filthy. But what made Versailles far worse was its sheer size, both in how much land it took up, as well as the number of people that inhabited it. With no concern for personal hygiene, it was inevitable that it would reek of filth. It makes you wonder that if this was how the upper classes lived, how bad must it have been for the masses? While today we can gaze at the opulence and grandeur of Versailles, let's not forget that beneath the rose-tinted view, it harbored a very smelly secret that lasted for centuries.